What I've been noticing over the last year plus during the campaign for president is that the elite media are so desperate to get rid of Donald Trump that they've pulled out all of their usual weapons, but they don't usually use them on one person. However, each time using it, racism, sexism, their usual stuff, homophobia, which they only tried in a sparse amount, and Islamophobia, and then your past and other things they can get on you. Instead of Donald Trump, like the typical Republican, crumbling after one of these things, he kept on. So what it led to was a barrage of attacks from really every angle they've got to diminish a person, intelligence to corruption, to the extent that what I see now is in our country is like a syrup, a thick flow, knee-high of hatred that we are all living in now, and it comes across on the news every day. It also comes across in comments, YouTube, Twitter, and everywhere else, Facebook. If Ivanka Trump or Kellyanne Conway post something about groceries, the hate zombies, the liberal hate zombies that have been trained to hate this man, and most Republicans, but more in this case, come out of the woodwork, and they fill those feeds with vile, with disgusting, horrible things, and it's all based on mostly 98%, I would say, deceit from ABC News, NBC and CBS, NPR, PBS, MTV, Comedy Central, New York Times, Washington Post, Associated Press. They are the weaponry. They do the assassination work for the Democratic Party. They basically, I would say, decide who gets elected in our country. Mostly, except it didn't completely work out this time, so they've settled for what's left, and that is to destroy him, his family, the people who work for him, and anybody who dares to say a nice thing about Donald Trump. It's stunning to behold, this mind control technique and the hatred and the evil. So what I picked out, some of these overlap a little in the angle of injecting hatred into the liberal airheads of America. They overlap, but they're different occasions and slightly different topics that end up leading back to the same one. Like there's about 3 of them that fall into the racism camp, and maybe 4 even out of the 12, but different topics. And it's important to get it on record somewhere. I would like to have it on record at least, of a rational mini discussion of each one of these, because it doesn't take more than many to show the deceit behind these. Let me get on to number 1 here. I'm going to try and just stick to the basics here. Any of these can be looked up. You get them from me, and there's 12 of them, and then go look them up and verify what I'm saying. Do not look them up at ABC, NBC, and CBS, or at PolitiFact, which is the liars, or at Wikipedia, run by liberal liars, or Snopes, run by liberal liars. You've got to go to conservative websites to get the truth, or talk radio. All right, let me get on to number 1. Birth certificate. Now, this is not the most dangerous of the ones on this list, but it's what started it all, and it leads to the danger of the other ones. The birth certificate is an interesting story. First of all, the worst thing Donald Trump did, because these people, let me name a couple of them real quick. David Muir on ABC World News Tonight, Lester Holt on NBC Nightly News, Scott Pelley over at CBS Evening News, the morning shows, Good Morning America, Today, and also the evening shows, 2020, Dateline, Nightline, 60 Minutes. Those are all owned by the same 3 corporations, which are locked at the hips ideologically. Also NPR. Worst case scenario is Donald Trump did their job of investigative reporting. It came up, it was a reasonable issue to explore because there was some Kenyan official paperwork saying that Barack Obama was born there. Might have only been in a newspaper, but it's still worth toying around with. It's called investigative reporting. They didn't do it because he's a Democrat and they wanted him in power. The worst case scenario is Donald Trump did their damn job. But because Barack Obama is black or half black, however you want to label it, they were able to say he asked these questions because he's a racist. Now, the reason it's dangerous is because this racism charge is getting people hurt in this country. Some of them hospitalized, some outright murdered by angry, resentful blacks thinking they're getting payback. This charge, the constant pounding of a lie about racism, and also never leaving in the fact, because we're blaming Republicans for supposedly being racist now, when in reality the Democrats fought the Civil War to defend slavery. The Republican Party was founded to fight slavery, and Democrats founded the Klan, and then 100 years later, during my lifetime, the Democrats were running the South during segregation. Only leader of the Senate who was a KKK member was a Democrat, praised by Hillary Clinton. Donald Trump got condemned because a former KKK member said that he thought it was a good idea to vote for Donald Trump in comparison to our other choices. Hillary Clinton praised a KKK member, never mentioned, and Donald Trump didn't do anything except not one time when he was interviewed, he didn't quickly say, I denounce David Duke. What he says is, I don't really know David Duke. I don't want to denounce somebody on live TV. Very reasonable, mature thing to say. Later back down, wrongly so. David Duke left the Klan 40 years ago. When he was a Democrat, he was in the Klan. And it was wrong to reject him out of hand without study. And in fact, Donald Trump keeps on stepping into things over and over here because he doesn't bother to study them a little bit before getting asked by these assassins about his view on it. And they keep backing him into a corner. And then he says the wrong thing, and then he sort of fibs a little to try and pretend that he didn't say the wrong thing. So he did their job by investigating the birth certificate, and then the story even gets better. There was a forensics team put on. Let me add first that Barack Obama contributed to the mess by waiting a year before he showed a birth certificate, and then there's considerable exploration into the idea that he never showed an accurate birth certificate at all. And a professional team, a forensics team, looked at the digital, because nobody was allowed to see it by hand. They looked at the digital version and came away, a professional team, declaring it a forgery, shown on live YouTube feed and also carried by a Phoenix news channel.
9 points of forgery in which words, letters, and hand-placed date stamps have been digitally copied from the on-me long-form birth certificate.
Blank, censored by ABC, NBC, and CBS. So the birth certificate, total garbage. Donald Trump did their job, investigative reporting, had a reason to do it, and then they hushed up the fact that there was evidence showing that he may have even been right, despite the fact that Donald Trump ultimately backed down on that one, which is not a great sign. Number 2, Mexican illegal immigration. Another one that I love because it's so easy to debunk, which is why I can do a short video with all 12 of these. I've left some out. I am leaving some out. I'm only going after ones that I think are dangerous. The Mexican illegal immigration. Mexicans not a race, folks. You can't be a racist for talking bad about Mexicans, which Trump didn't do anyway. But I want to start at the top layer and peel it off and say that you can't be a racist for talking bad about Mexicans. You could be an ethnicist, but there are not tens of millions of blacks and Mexicans in this country who have been conditioned to call white people racist. They wouldn't know what to think if you started calling Donald Trump an ethnicist. So they use the word racist, which is completely grammatically inaccurate and a lie to boot. So let's take that apart. But he wasn't even talking about all Mexicans anyway. If you back up to the part of the comment that's censored out in the news afterwards, he said Mexico is not sending its best.
When Mexico sends its people, they're not sending their best.
So if he says best, that means there's a worse and a better, right? Therefore, whatever he's saying about the worse does not necessarily apply to the better. Therefore, he separated the Mexican population, not calling the entire group anything. Big deal. It's important to get that out there. Corrections, these don't take a long time, but also I know that the people allowed on to Meet the Press and This Week and those types of programs are not ones who necessarily know the truth and speak it well and understand also the lack of context in the way things are reported. Also the omissions of Democrat sins and treason, and the omissions of, like I've already said, minority committed racist attacks on white people, including from Hispanics. So there we are. Number two, the danger is that you're fomenting hatred inside of people, added to the fact that even schools lie to children about the history of racism in our country. How so? Well, they don't tell them Democrats were the party defending racism. They don't tell them that black people in America owned slaves. I saw a number 3,000 slave owners. The very first legally recognized slave in the United States was owned by a black man. Not to mention the fact that only 5% of all slaves came here. The United States is considered worldwide the racist country, but somebody else got the rest of the 95% of them. Plus there were other slaves. There were white slaves. There were slaves in Greeks and the Romans and the Babylonians and the Egyptians. And the Muslims took slaves, even black slaves out of Africa in huge numbers. There were slaves in South America and in parts of Europe and Central America. In Africa, you don't get to blame that shit on white people or on the United States, folks. It's crap. It's hateful. It's evil, really, to stoke up that stuff in people and even get it to the point where liberal teachers are allowed to deceive children, and their parents don't even know about it. Even conservative parents hand their children over to those deceit factories that teach the evolution lie, global warming lie, human sexuality lie, and the slavery lie. It's dangerous, and it's screwing with our country in a big-ass way. And a lot of us are real sick of it. Not everybody understands to the extent of the intentional deceit going on, because they don't quite understand the whole history and the context. Where are we? Number 3, Muslim immigration. Donald Trump very bravely and astutely said that we need to think about this Muslim immigration thing. There aren't peaceful Muslims, except for ones that don't know their religion. There just aren't. Their book, you don't see any studies on it, and it isn't presented on the news, no exposés, but their book says, kill the infidel, kill the Christian if he won't pay a tax, kill the Jews if they won't pay a tax. Those are the people of the book. They may get to live. The infidel doesn't get to live at all. It says conquer the world. It says you're okay raping their women. And it says you're okay killing your own children if they stray from the faith. You're okay killing other Muslims. This is their book. So if you got a peaceful Muslim, you can show him in his book. You're peaceful. You can be peaceful if you want, Mr. Muslim, but your book only indicates that you're not obeying it. You're not even sticking to your own religion, because that was never changed in the book. There is some talk about peace in the Quran, but it's peace between brother Muslims. Got that? So it's smart to think about what we're doing here, letting in millions of Muslims, when in this country you have two figures in polling, and one of them is that 25% said they agree with violence for people who insult Islam. American Muslims say that. Not one of those people should have been allowed into this country. All right? And then it gets worse. 50% believe in Sharia law. In America, that means you burn the Constitution. Sharia law says you get to kill your own children. A woman has to have 4 witnesses to win a rape case, and she might actually be convicted for complaining if she has less. This is an abominable state of being for that religion. And really, if we had any sense combined with bravery, combined with power. No sane thinking person would let Muslims at all in your country. You just shouldn't. I mean, 50% say throw away the Constitution. They got no business being let in here. Donald Trump is called a bigot for that, for being smart. And the reason why it works is because they have the 50 million audience, the idea army. Powerful voices on Twitter, bam, 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 dare to tweet something about a barbecue you went to or a football game you saw, and the hate zombies are in there saying terrible things. Where's your tax returns? What about the pussy? You know, that you're grabbing the pussy, and sexual assault, and warmonger, and colluding with Russia. You're a traitor. All of that crap in there every day. Comments, blam, blam, blam. Same way they used to do to Sarah Palin. These people are completely like robots, but the irony of it is that they say that Republicans are robots because they've taken our truthful language about them and turned it around back on us. They've been taught to do that by comedic liars, for example, like Jon Stewart and Bill Maher. And so they're using our weapons. They use brainwashing. They use all sorts of things that are not accurate. Conservatives are oftentimes former liberals who got informed. Liberals are not former informed conservatives. We're not robots. The people are highly informed. All right, that's number 3. The danger here is in not allowing the truth about Islam to be reported. The word xenophobia is often thrown around for either Mexico immigration or Muslim immigration. Xenophobia means, let me read it. Where are you? Blam, blam, blam. Right there. Intense or irrational dislike or fear of people from other countries. That does not apply to Republicans or Donald Trump, but it works on the ignorant and the people who only get news from either the calm liars at ABC, NBC, and CBS or the vicious liars at MSNBC and even Comedy Central or CNN. That works for them, and they will repeat that crap in Twitter comments and stuff. Xenophobia, xenophobia. And it's not even close to being scholarly applying that term. But like I said, they just rake in the entire salad bar, whatever works. Because one person will say, well, the thing he said about women, that's the one that works for me. And he's racist, that's the one that works for this person, you know, and he's colluding with Russia, and that's the one that works for this person. So you bring in all this shit, and pretty soon you've got an increasing population of people believing deceit and hating the target, the one they're supposed to hate. All right, I'll be back in a minute with number 4.